The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Welcome to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Los. Good morning, Otto.
John. Good morning.
And we're going to have a very interesting show today. We have with us Deborah Heiser. Excuse me, is it right now?
Heiser.
I wrote it down phonetically too. That's what I am. Anyway, we have Deborah with us, and Deborah actually was referred to the show from Councilwoman Veronica Lurvy. And I know Veronica for several years now. She's just a wonderful, wonderful person. And any referral coming from Veronica has to be a wonderful person also. So Deborah, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. And I'm going to let Deborah tell you about herself because it's a wonderful background. And just so Deborah knows, I'm a financial advisor, but I also have a master's in gerontology and thanatology, which is the study of death. So I'm very in tune with some of the stuff that you're working with. And I read your bio and it's tremendous. So I'm going to turn it over to you for you to introduce yourself because it's tremendous.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having me today. It's a real privilege. And I have to say, you're spot on. Veronica Lurvy is just an amazing individual. She's such a caring person. So everything you said about her is correct. I've known her for years. I am an applied developmental psychologist. My specialty is aging, which when I got into the field didn't exist in the 90s to be a developmental psychologist who looks at aging. The difference in my area is that I look at what we should expect that's normal. I'm not looking for pathology, whereas most psychologists are looking at pathology. I'm looking at what we should expect and how we look at life through the lens of positive and normal. So I started out in research in a large nursing home in New York City, studying depression and frailty and things that we have always expected in aging, right? People have always looked at the physical attributes that we have and how we can expect the decline to happen. And at one point, someone came to me and at a conference and he said, well, okay, you study aging. Why bother? What's there to, what good can you be doing? I said, well, we're going to help people who are depressed to feel less depressed and those who are frail to be less frail. And he said, big deal. We have nothing to look forward to. And I was embarrassed, honestly. I thought, wow, I don't have an answer for him. So I went back and I took a look at everything that I was doing and I realized that I was missing the bigger picture. And so what I realized is that we have to look at the positive. What do we have to look forward to? And there's an absolute tremendous amount that we have to look forward to. And that changed the trajectory of how I was looking at aging research, how we look at how we can engage individuals. So what I embarked on was looking at how people feel as they get older. And what we know from a lot of research out there is that people are happier as they're older. 50-year-olds are happier than 20-year-olds. And we can expect to live feeling better about ourselves every decade. And that's something that 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds and even 40-year-olds often think that can't possibly be. But what we have are stages of our life, we're built to be this way. We're built to feel better. So while our physical trajectory goes up when we're young, we learn to walk, talk. When I was 15, I was a pretty fast runner, not anymore. But that ends up going down. We have a steep decline over the years. Any one of us in this room is probably not as good at sports as we were, when we were teenagers. But that most everyone I've ever talked with says it doesn't matter to me unless they were a professional athlete. It doesn't matter. I'm not looking to be as fast a runner. What we do have is our emotional trajectory, which starts out when we're born and goes up. It never declines. That goes up through our lifespan. And we often neglect to think about our emotional trajectory. And that's what carries us through our life. And when we hit the point of midlife, we want to give back. We feel connected with others. We feel engaged with our communities. We are built to want to leave our footprint. We want to be able to leave a legacy of our choosing. And these are the things that bring us satisfaction. These are the things that bring us joy. These are things that we look forward to. And I've been finding now that I've founded the Mentor Project that what we have thought of for so many years, mentors, people who give back, that we're burdening them somehow, that somehow we are asking something of people and they may want to say no to us because they're too busy or they feel burdened by our asking for something. But what I found is that, in fact, it's the opposite. I had a group of mentors who were some of the leaders in their fields. One is one of the founders of the Firewall. His work is in museums around the world. The other is Bob Cousins, who just won Inventor of the Year. And he's responsible for patenting how we use credit cards on the internet. So these guys made world change. And they said, we really want to give back. We want to be able to give our expertise to the next generation. We feel sort of cut off if we can't do that, or disconnected. They've checked all the boxes in life and they want to keep going. And so we started the Mentor Project, and I thought, gee, I wonder if we're going to really get very many mentors. And just a year later, we started with about 10 in the early 2020. We have more than 80, and we have a waiting list of top people who want to give back. It's not a burden, and they get such joy and pleasure out of it. Kids are able to express their joy at learning about like quantum mechanics or learning about things they never would have been exposed to at an early age. And our mentors are able to see that they're leaving the legacy of their choice to those that they want to. It's just beautiful. And so this is part of what we have to look forward to that a lot of people don't know about. And that's what I'm excited to be able to talk about today.
Deborah, when you're talking about each, say, decade of your life, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm listening to it and this is what I'm grabbing, you're happier. Is that, like, what percentage, if we can get, I'm not looking for real statistics, and I do a lot of work with seniors. And I do find, I don't find seniors as being a negative group of people whatsoever. They're loving, they're caring, and if people paid attention and listened to them, it's such a wealth of knowledge that they have to give us. But when you're putting this together, and I'm not looking for you to say you interviewed, 10,000 people and whatever, but just give me a feel for, because there still is a percentage of people that are not happy as they age. They left the 30s or they left the 40s or the 50s, whatever it happens to be. Obviously, sickness comes in and different things. And what you're saying is 100% right in my mind, and you have to fight it because you're 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90, whatever you are. And you got to live in that moment. But that's my question, if it formulated into any sort of a question.
Sure, and you know what, a lot of people ask that. Here's why it's confusing. We can expect, about 50% of us across our lifespan can expect to feel symptoms of depression at some point. Whether that becomes actual depression or not, we can expect that. And there are certain factors that can lead to that. And that's particularly when we get older. That's cancer, diabetes, heart conditions, medications. So if you think about all of that, it sounds like, wow, that could be a lot. But
just hold the thought. I have one other question as we're going into that. What is the definition of depression?
I don't know that I can give you the exact DSM-5 diagnosis out of the book.
Not from a
but
diagnosis point of view, but some people say they're depressed and they're really not. It's like walk around the block and you forgot about your depression.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. So yes, there are symptoms of depression, and you can be sad and not be depressed. I'll give you an example of something that can look like depression that isn't. If there's a loss of a loved one, you're expected to feel sad and down, and that's not depression. It can look like it, but it's not. It's not until it becomes, that it's a year out or something, and a person then has not stopped feeling the same level of sadness. And so some things can look like depression. Another thing that can look like it is if there's a big life change, downsizing. It's like what we might call an adjustment disorder. There can be adjustment periods that make it look like or feel like there's depression there, but a person's mood will lift after the adjustment period. So a lot of people will think that periods of normal periods of feeling sort of down might be depression, and they're not. We're not supposed to be happy every day. If you think back to any good and amazing thing that you've looked forward to, it can often come with stressors. Think about weddings. We look forward to those, but there's often a lot of stress. There can be infighting in families. There can be all kinds of added drama that's not expected. Yet people sign up to have a wedding over and over again, even knowing that. And it's something that we look forward to. The birth of a baby, the purchasing a house, buying a car, all of these things can have stressors that make it seem difficult, even though we look forward to it. The same thing can happen with our emotions through life. We'll have good days that aren't so good. If you become ill, there can be that can be a blip in the road where you feel a little low, and then that increases as you get better. The one thing I can say, though, that is super important for distinguishing between that is that if you know that you can expect to feel symptoms of depression or to feel down because you are going through something like a medical condition, that you're taking certain medications that are associated with it, you can address it early, and then you'll get better quicker. And that depression won't set in the same way. So these are some of the things that people say, well, I might as well just expect to feel depressed because I might have diabetes or I might have a heart condition or things like that.
Deborah, I'm going to put you on hold. We have to take a break, and I want to keep on this topic. You're listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Los.
Still here, John.
Absolutely, and we're so fortunate for that. And we're having a wonderful conversation with Deborah Heiser. And Deborah it's an amazing profession that Deborah's involved with, because she's really, and I'm paraphrasing and making stuff up as I go along, but Deborah is making you aware that as you age, you do not have to be depressed, sad. You have so much in the moment to enjoy, and you have people to help, and you have people that can help you. And so far, this is tremendous. And we're going to talk more about the mentoring program that Barbara started, but Deborah, excuse me, not Barbara, Deborah. So we're coming back to Deborah and continuing on. We were talking, the one thing that I said to you at the break, which I thought was very, very insightful, is adjustment disorder. And people turn around and think they're depressed. And literally, it's nothing more than a step in your life.
You know, I do just want to reiterate that we all go through transitions in our life, and we can expect to do that, whether it's retirement, whether it is downsizing, whether it is kids moving out. There's a lot that we can expect with regard to even going on Social Security. These sorts of things really are changes that can throw somebody into feeling uneasy or feeling anxious. Um, these are normal. We should expect that. Whenever there's a change, you should expect to feel, not 100% confident anytime there is that. Yet we're not told to do that, and we're not told to prepare for that. So we have a whole range of emotions, and we're expected to feel them all, and they're all normal.
Right.
And so if we can look at that through the lifespan and say, if you're feeling down or blue, okay, you're probably going to feel better. If you're feeling super happy, somebody throws you a party and you're excited, do you expect to wake up in the morning feeling that same elation? No. And that's you don't expect to feel elated all the time. We expect to have our ups and downs, but that it'll even out, and we'll take a ride up and we'll take a ride below, but it will even out. So that's what we can really expect.
I can speak from a lot of life experience and business experience related to all the things you're talking about, the transitions, the adjustment disorders, the life that is life, whether you like the idea or not. That's part of the package. And I'm a big advocate of taking things one day at a time and hurdles one day at a time, and having goals, no matter how small they may be. Have some goals, have a purpose, have a reason for being here, basically. And your areas that the mentorship and this generativity I read about preparing for this is an area I'd like to expand on a little bit as well. When I first read generativity, I believe that's a very common thing, no doubt, in the psychology field. But a lot of people probably haven't got a clue what that really means who are not involved with psychology. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting if you could expand on that a little bit in terms of how it relates to aging, getting older, which I am, we all are. And I'm fortunate enough to say that it hasn't been such a bad thing. I've had my problems in life. I've had cancer. I've had other things that were little bumps along the way. I'm fortunate enough to get through them. And I feel blessed that I'm here and I'm able to do what I'm doing right now. Attitude has a tremendous amount to do with it, but I think this generativity thing is a key area. It's not all about you. It's about leaving your mark, as you put it. And if you get off the pity pot about just you, maybe you might find there's some pretty good stuff going on. So if you could expand a little bit on that concept, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. And
Deborah, before you do, I just want to say one thing. Otto didn't say much in the beginning, but he is the poster man for just the exemplary senior. There's no question about it in my mind. This guy is phenomenal. And just what he just said, he does his homework, but he lives life. And he tries to make sure that everybody involved with him lives life. So now you can go on, Deborah. I just had to throw that in there for Otto.
Well, thank you very much.
I love to hear that. And that's exactly what we should all be doing, is living life and living it, not just for looking for the blissful moments, but experiencing our life and going through every experience we can. So thank you for bringing up generativity, Otto. We are built to be generative. It's a life stage. So just like we're built to walk and talk, we're built to be generative. That's around midlife and beyond. And to be generative means that we have a desire to give back without expecting anything in return. It's caring for others without the need for money or an award or a prize or anything like that. You just do it because you want to do it. And we are built to do this, and we're all oftentimes doing it without acknowledging it. And the one thing that I say is so important is that we need to acknowledge when we're giving back, because it's so important for us to feel like we are giving in a way that matters to us. We live our whole lives checking off boxes. Okay, I went to college, I got married, I had children, I bought a house, I did whatever it is. There's a lot of boxes that we can check through life. Once you've checked the boxes that you were expected to check, now what? This is when we have our opportunity to leave our legacy, our mark, our footprints. And some people started earlier than others. I'm going to give you an example of generativity in film. It's all over in film. It's been around forever. It has a terrible name associated with it. Nobody likes the word generativity. It's hard to say. What does that really mean? But if you look at Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the movie, especially if you go back to the original one that they had from the 50s, Ebenezer Scrooge was a guy who had absolutely everything that you can think of. He was rich. He lived in a mansion. He had servants taking care of him, and he was unhappy. So it wasn't until he started giving back to others and having meaningful connections with others that he experienced joy. We have the exact same experience in our own lives. So it isn't until we connect with others, till we sort of see the bigger picture and get out of ourselves, like you said, Otto, and start to engage with others, that we feel joy. And the joy that we feel is really as big and bigger than we ever felt when we were younger, because we know that a piece of us is moving on to somebody else, and it's living on in somebody else or in something that we're making a difference. And that's more powerful than buying a purse and feeling happy about it, or getting a new pair of shoes, or buying a car. It's a different kind of joy. It's one that's lasting, and it's one that's very meaningful to us. So we can expect this in midlife. Some people do it earlier, some people do it later. It's one of those really wonderful things that there's no exact time that we have to do it. It might be that you're 93 and first hitting it. Doesn't matter what age you are, you can reach this stage. And people who reach it, this is why we feel so happy as we get older. This is why we're feeling good, is because we're giving back, which sounds counterintuitive. We always think we need to take something in to feel happy, but our biggest happiness comes from when we're giving back. And that can be through volunteering, it can be through mentoring, or it can be through philanthropy. And 2 out of the 3 of those are free. So you can volunteer and get tremendous joy and pleasure. You can mentor and get tremendous joy and pleasure. And both of those are free. Or you can engage in philanthropy.
I think sometimes too, what like philanthropy, you need money, but the other 2, as you point out, are free. And I think sometimes a senior might sit there and wait for somebody to contact them. And I don't think it works like that. Learn how to text so you can communicate with your grandchildren. And they will eventually talk to you and want to learn from your life experience. I've had the fortunate pleasure I have 10 grandchildren, and I've had the pleasure of them coming to me and asking me stuff. And the only reason I think they do that is because I reached out to them in ways that, you do. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You send them a text, I'm thinking about you, or whatever. I think that's a big thing, is it doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be a small deal. Maybe there are old pictures. I'm always big on this. And you have family history, and you know the family history. And young people don't know the family history. Well, share that with them. Don't just sit and look at this pile of old pictures and let it rot, if you will, or be thrown in the garbage when you're gone. There's so many things you can do, and they don't require, you don't have to be in super gymnasium condition to do a lot of these things. It's all relative. I've been fortunate. I'm blessed. I still play golf. I can walk, talk. My joints are okay. All of the above. I've been blessed. And some of that, I think you work at it a little bit too. You do light exercise, you stretch, you try to keep the joints greased, if you will. But you still need a little luck, blessing. But there's so many things you can do based relative to if your situation is bad, which it can be. I know a lot of people that have a lot of problems. They have joint problems. They can't walk, and that's a problem, mobility. But if your mind, thank God, is still okay, maybe you can still do some things based on your mind, which is always with you 24/7. So if you try to take advantage of it, as opposed to feeling sorry for yourself, you might do okay, in my opinion. A little editorial, but
Those are great points. Absolutely. What you said is so spot on. And I love how you brought up your grandkids, because people don't realize the importance of grandparenting. That is mentoring. I've spoken with so many of top people, like a 4-star general. I expected when he was talking about mentoring to talk about something professional. His biggest feeling of mentorship was with his grandchild. So
I'm going to do it before we keep going. We're going to go into a break, but I'm agreeing with both, with Otto and what you were saying, and Deborah following up on that. Grandkids are a gift if you incorporate them properly into your life. But right now, we're going to take another break. You're listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Los. And Otto and Deborah just had a wonderful interaction in reference to, how we're aging, how we're incorporating. I'm not saying incorporating grandchildren from the perspective that like we're using them. You love them and they're part of your life. But I have a question in reference to that, what Otto was talking and what Deborah was talking about. Do we know how socialization is helping us as we're doing it? Like, is the senior who joins a senior center, or in Otto's case, Otto starts talking to his grandchildren and then they reach back to him. Are they aware? Like the other night, I went for a vaccine, my second vaccine, and my 10-year-old grandson came with me. And my daughter the next day told my wife, she says, his name is Lucas. Lucas always helps Daddy. And he does. He's a wonderful boy. We have a good time together. And she said he always makes him happy when he's around him. And I understand it and I know it. But when you're saying in reference to generalization, in reference to seniors, do seniors know this is helping them and therefore say, guess what? I want to have more time with my grandkids or my neighbor or somebody who's bringing me, happiness.
A lot of people don't go through life and they don't realize these things, right? We all do this. It's not like some do and some don't. We all do this. So are people aware of this? Probably not. It's not something that's been talked about. How many times has anyone heard the term generativity and said, I think I'll apply that to my life? We don't generally do that. However, by engaging in activities that we enjoy with others, it's the meaningful connections really that's the crux of everything. So if you go to a senior center and you're completely disengaged and you sit by yourself, you're not going to be experiencing the pleasure that you can get from others. You have to engage in a meaningful connection. Now that can be one person, or it can be 4 or 10, but it doesn't matter the number. It matters that you have a connection that's meaningful. Okay. So if you are aware of the importance of meaningful connections, then you can engage in it. Anytime we're aware of something, it makes us want to do it more, just by being aware of it. And acknowledging it continues it. Then we tend to just do it more and more. We say, oh yeah, I liked that. I'm going to do more of that. So if you sit at a table at a senior center with others and happen to turn to your left or your right and you talk to somebody and you say, oh, I kind of enjoyed that, you're going to go back and sit at that table again and engage a little bit more. A meaningful connection can take some time. But this is what's important, and this is why it's so important to have the opportunity to be engaged, whether that's with your grandchildren. And I don't want to diminish that. That is important. And here's why some of that is so important. We've passed down, the religion is passed down, our values, our culture for centuries. And it's because of parents and grandparents passing everything along. So I'll give you an example. I had my kids in videotaping grandma, who lives with us for the almost all the time, except during the pandemic. She had to move out while they went to school. But she does the recipes. They know what the holidays feel and taste like. This is why we have recipes that are, you know, we don't even know when they started, and they keep getting passed down and passed down and passed down. This is how religion is passed down. So Christopher Bolito talks about, when he talks about aging and the Bible, he talks about all of the mentors in the Bible and how the things that were talked about in the Old Testament, and he really talks about the Old Testament, but how that has moved forward and how that works all the way to today. And these are the sorts of things that we take for granted that we don't really think about. But the minute we start to acknowledge, I like that person to the left at the table, I love spending time with my grandkids, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I tell them about this, that, or the other thing that I went through or that my parents went through. And you're not just leaving that kind of a legacy, but you're passing on your values and your culture at the same time. So if you're talking about St. Patrick's Day and what your family has always done, these are not trivial to the next generation. They haven't experienced them yet. And this is something that
you've used a magic word that we've used on this show a lot of times, engaged. We have said so many times that the guests who come on the show are very engaged in what they do, and you can tell who you're talking to about how engaged are they really, or are they just drifting through this whole process, if you will. And that's life. I mean, the more you get engaged in it, the better it is. You know, if you sort of drift through, it's it's kind of like you're not taking advantage of it.
That's so true, Otto. And that's one of the keys for coping with, negative affect or feeling down or blue or depressed, is that when you're feeling down or blue or depressed, you disengage. That's what most people do. They withdraw. Keeping yourself engaged is a buffer for that. That helps you. You can draw on the energy from others. Every time you engage, you feel better. So yes, engagement is key. And that is a buffer for negative affect, for sure.
I read something. I don't want to, I'm not a psychologist, but I read this thing, that the loyalty generativity scale, LGS. And I looked at, there's 6 questions. Do you get involved with that idea? The questions, to me, I looked at them and they really all kind of make you think about, well, what do I do? Pass along knowledge you've learned, create things that have an impact on others, try to teach others skills. Would you adopt a child, which was an interesting question? And then improve the neighborhood you live in. And will your contributions exist after you die? I think if people ask themselves those 6 questions, it would kind of make you think quite a bit about where your life is at, and maybe things you might think about doing that you haven't been doing.
Oh, absolutely. You said adopt a child. I worked with someone who did not have children of his own. He lived alone and he didn't have any extended family. And what he did was he essentially adopted the neighbor kids. They came over. So it doesn't have to be literally go out and adopt someone, but he had the neighbor kids come over, and he was a really fastidious guy who had a really well-kept home. And I went to visit to see him, and there was a guinea pig on his table that the kids brought over, and they were eating ice cream completely sloppily. And it was the antithesis of how he had been before, and he was the happiest guy on the planet. He brought out his special china for these kids when they would come over to have their ice cream, and bring their animal and put it on the table, and it was pure joy. I mean, just thinking about it, it makes me smile and feel happy again, because that was the joy that he received when he had them over. It was just a completely different scene than I had ever seen there before. And it was a weekly event. When he did pass away years later, the kids went to the funeral. And I was surprised because they weren't very old, and they came and they actually spoke about him, and it was really touching. So these are the sorts of things that we don't really think about, but adopting a child can mean just hanging out with your neighbors. That's
Deborah, that's a great story. And my question is, how does something like that commence? A person is trained basically all their life, maybe from their parents, their grandparents. You got to do this, you got to be neat, you can't let somebody into your life. Some of the, like in that situation, I'm looking at that situation as a man who really went outside his boundaries. He was so fastidious, and then he let these kids in to realize the joy. What's the impetus? Like, if I'm with a senior, what's the impetus for me to turn around? I know it's your personality when you talk to people. It's like, get a cat, get a puppy. I'm going all over the place with this, but my question is, where is the wake-up call for a senior to turn around and say, I got to change, because how many more years do I have? Why can't I enjoy them?
For him, he was 90.
Wow.
And he said, he lived quite a few years later or longer, but he had everything he wanted. He had a nice place. He had the money that he needed, but he was lonely. And he wasn't depressed, but he was lonely. And so he just knocked on the door of the neighbor's apartment and said, hey, I have some extra ice cream here. Would you guys like some? And of course, what child says no to that? They came over, and then he said, okay, come every Wednesday. Now keep coming. And then it became a relationship where they would just run in and out of his apartment. But every Wednesday was ice cream and the fancy bowl day. And that's how it commenced. He just thought, what do I have to lose, really? And it was a lasting relationship with the whole family, but mostly with the 3 kids.
Interesting stuff. You figure he's 90 years old, he's not too late.
It's never too late.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people I work with who are 90 and older, and people, we have some ageism is thinking that you can't change at any age, or that you can't improve, or you can't feel good, or there's nothing, that there's a time limit on when you can do the things that you need to do. And that is just simply not the case. It does not matter what age you are. You can improve in how you feel. You can improve in your connections with others. And you always, always have the opportunity to leave your mark on the world the way that you want. And there's never an age limit on that.
I agree 1,000%. I also think it's important to realize that you don't know everything, first of all right? Just because you're older doesn't mean you know everything. There's a lot more to know. And I think the desire to want to keep learning about what's going on around you, or frankly, we keep pushing technology. If you have grandchildren who live in Oregon, they're not just going to pop in. So really helps to learn how to do Zoom or anything that'll help you communicate, even just a phone call. But do it. Learn how to use it. You should keep learning. I mean, life is just, it's a constant learning curve, in my opinion.
And you also, and I want to talk about that when we come back, you have to step outside your comfort zone, I think. At a given point in life, you got to step outside it and get into your discomfort zone. And maybe you'll go back, but you have to give it a shot. You're listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Los.
Always a good subject, John, by the way, aging.
Say again, Otto?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I say aging is always a good subject.
It's the truth. And it
really is. I mean, people have to talk about it because it's real. It's the way it works. You start aging the day you're born, so you might as well get that through your head,
I'm agreeing with you 100%, but nobody wants to. And we have with us today Deborah Heiser, and Deborah is a specialist in the field of aging. And just when we went to the break, we talked about stepping outside your comfort zone, because I remember my mother, actually next week, my mother will be dead 6 years. She was born and died on St. Patrick's Day, but she was one of those ladies who would constantly say, "Well, isn't that foolish? I'm too old for that now." And I say, "Ma, let's go. We're going to go someplace. We're going to do something." "Oh, that's silly. I'm too old for it." And you're never too old for anything. And the opposite of that is my co-host Otto, that turns around and says, you got to live life every day. Why would you not do it? And guess what? If you can't do something, at least you've tried.
Yeah, I'm not going to go ski jumping or anything like that at this point in time.
Exactly. There's a common sense element. And yeah. Deborah, you agree there? You disagree? I'm going to go for you as a specialist.
I do think that we have to be able to come out of our comfort zone in times of need when we need to. So the example of the person who knocked on the door when he was starting to feel lonely of his neighbors. If you're feeling great and you have everything going smoothly, stay where you are, stay in your lane. But if you're starting to feel that you are in a position where, you're spending a lot of your day saying, wow, I wish there was something else going on, then it's important to be able to step out of your comfort zone. And that can mean different things. It doesn't actually have to be out of your comfort zone. And this is one thing that we found, is that a lot of people have a comfort zone, but they don't know where and how to engage in that. So we founded the Mentor Project based on the United States essentially wasting our most precious natural resource, which is all the experts who are in our country who are either no longer working or they're disengaged somehow from being able to be generative. So I'm going to give you an example. If you are an expert in something, so for example, and this sort of touches on what you're talking about, John, one of the founders of the Firewall, Bill Cheswick, said, I'm retired. I don't know how to engage with kids, but I want to give back. But I don't know where to find them. I'll look like a weirdo if I go to a park and say, hey, you want to learn quantum mechanics to kids? Or if I can't just walk into a school and say, hey, I want to teach you. We're finding that more and more people like Bill didn't know. They wanted to get out of their comfort zone. They didn't know how or where. And that can be a problem. So we tell people, get out of your comfort zone. And they say, I'd love to, but how or where? And so one of the things that we did was we tried to put together a program so people could get out of their comfort zone, or to get their expertise out to people in a new and different way. And so the Mentor Project happens to do that by bringing experts in a variety of fields to kids in schools and communities, one-on-one. And we get kids to do things that they never thought they could do. So for example, we just in December had a hackathon with kids from Argentina and the US who had never met. And a 13-year-old girl had a really interesting cybersecurity idea that had eluded all of the experts around the world. And because she had guidance from people who were top in the field in that area, she just needed guidance. She never even thought to do this. That team of kids from the US and Argentina were able to do something patentable within 48 hours. So these are the kinds of changes that we can make in the world when we are utilizing our most precious natural resource, which isn't oil, coal, or gas. It is the brains of our individuals who are experts in their fields. And so this is how we now have a waiting list of people who want to come on, because it's fun, it's engaging, it's getting them to talk with other people. So the mentors like talking with the other mentors, not just the kids. And this is one example. So I'm talking about the Mentor Project now, but there are other examples of this that exist also, that utilize a person's ability to sort of get out of a rut that they might be in and move and give back, and utilize, every one of our adults who's midlife and beyond, who's an expert in whatever they've done, is a precious resource. And that's important to make sure.
You used the word mentor. When I first retired, I did a little bit of marketing and sales consulting. And then I had a customer that I'm still working with, and we now call it sales coaching, but I could really call it sales mentoring, because that's what it is. I have no big formula that we do. We just talk if they get into certain situations about approaches and ideas and how they might handle something. And really it is mentoring, as opposed to coaching is a better word than consulting, in my opinion, but mentoring is even better. That's what I'm doing basically now that I think about it. It's, and why? First of all, I always liked what I did for a living. I took it seriously. I took it as a profession. I was engaged in what I was doing. And, you learn, and I still learn every day now that I'm dealing with them. It's fun. What can I tell you?
Exactly.
Go ahead, Deborah. I'm just going to say, I just think this whole mentoring thing, it's such a common sense approach, because I think everybody feels better if you help somebody at the end of the day, even if it's just pick up something that fell from somebody who's walking down the street. You say you dropped it, but even more so to help somebody ride a bike or to do whatever that was involved in your mentoring programs. I think you have to, at the end of the day, say, my God, I did a good thing today. I helped another human being.
If you look back in your own life, all right, I look back sometimes and realize there were some handfuls of people that really made a big difference in my life, where they guided me, or maybe in my teens, I had a basketball coach, who mentored, basically, looking back on it. And you don't realize it when you're going through it, that they really did have an impact on your life. And frankly, they don't realize that they had an impact on your life either. And you have an impact on other people's lives now, whether you know it or not, depending on whether it be positive or negative. What kind of image are you setting for your grandchildren or anybody, family members? I don't know. It seems not that complicated, but John, you brought up a good point. How do you kick it off? How do you get going? How do you maybe change your view on things? And frankly, maybe some people can't change, but then there are a lot of people in the gray area who could change if they it takes work. I mean, I'm not going to say that I get up every day saying, oh, wow, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. No, you have your days that are, you're not quite as motivated, and maybe you kind of goof off that day and don't do much. That's
Don't we
part
do
of the
that at
deal.
every age, though?
Yeah, that's part of the deal too.
Yeah, we what you just said, Otto, is true. There are days that are better than others, and there are days that we goof off. I teach intro psychology, and it's remote right now. And there are kids that you can see they're just taking a day off. It doesn't matter what age we are. We are engaged at a different level. There are good days, there are bad days. It isn't something that happens to us that we get older, that we say, oh, my day is happy, or it's a boring day. It happens at any age. Ask any teenager, they'll tell you, I'm bored, I have nothing to do, or, it really isn't any different, but we somehow put a bigger emphasis on it with as we age, and it's just not the same. It's not any different, really. But you can change at any age, and of course there is a big gray area. And Otto, you've been naturally doing things that are on the trajectory that you should be doing, that lead to optimal giving back and optimal life for yourself, and that's being engaged. But part of it, if you're not optimally engaged, is to be aware that you can become engaged, and it doesn't require that you have an advanced degree, or that you have any special skill that you think that you don't have. We all do, whether that's being the holder of our family's values and culture, or whether that is, grandparenting. It doesn't matter. We all have that ability, and it matters that we just acknowledge it, so then we can knock on our neighbor's door. We can go to the senior center and sit with someone. We can do these sorts of small things, and once we acknowledge it, that's what takes us from the gray area into the bright, sunny day area.
You look at it. I'm sorry, John. We've made a lot of progress, because I remember back when there used to be a 40-plus club. If you lost your job and you were 40, you were like finished. You really were back then. The people wouldn't hire you if you were 40. But I thought about that a lot. And I think the difference is, back then, a lot of jobs did not have transferable skills. They were jobs that you maybe worked in an office, and you worked on the same paperwork every day, and you did, pre-computers, and your skills were not really transferable. You were good at filling out that form for that company, whoever it was, but that's changed dramatically. I mean, people now will hire people who are in their 60s because they have experience, and life is like that. You have life experience, not business necessarily, but life. You were a mother, a grandmother, a Girl Scout leader, or whatever you were. These are all experiences that you bring to the table that other people didn't have. And,
And Otto, people are also starting their own businesses later and later. It's not unusual for a 70-year-old to say, you know what, I always wanted to do this. I was in my job that I had, but I'm going to start a new business. The largest segment of new business leaders are the baby boomer generation.
I don't believe it. We're out of time already. This was wonderful, Deborah. I thank you so much. And I want to make one statement, and that is, you may not find the encouragement in your family to get involved in stuff. So feel free to move on. You don't have to have your children or your grandchildren saying, Grandma, Grandpa, good for you. But your friend or your neighbor, like the story you told us, which is tremendous. Those are the kind of things you have to find somebody. And what we're going to do is be putting up Deborah's website when we show this. And so feel free to look at the website, to reach out to Deborah. This has just been a wonderful program. And I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on. You've been listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.